Hello, 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 and welcome to My Empty Hands, a podcast about the martial arts with a focus on Kempo. As always, I am Reggie Darden, and got another wonderful guest with me today. And it wouldn't be my show if I didn't make sure that I didn't make sure I got the correct pronunciation of your name before we started recording. So I always do that. So probably butcher it anyway. But go ahead and give us the correct pronunciation of your name so that I don't screw it up.
Sure. Hey, Reggie, good to meet you. Thanks for having me on. My name is Scott Hilderbrand, and that would be the way to pronounce it, Hilderbrand.
All righty, right on, right on. All right. So as I typically start things, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before we started here, I am currently training in 5 different martial arts. American Kempo being, I guess, the core, the primary art. I also train in capoeira, hapkido, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and Muay Thai, and have some experience in taekwondo and boxing as well. So my dance card is pretty full, but I can't eat just one. I gotta sample a little bit of everything and get into everything. So that's what I do, and that's kind of a little bit of my background, and we might get into more of it as we go along. But going
Sure.
to turn it over to our esteemed guest here and say that where did everything start for you? Where did the martial arts find you? Where did Kempo find you? And we'll just go from there.
Well, thanks, Reggie. What I did was when I was a kid, my journey started when I was about 12 years old. Um, and my brother, Greg Hilderbrand, who's also a Kempoist, martial artist, and trained with Mr. Parker as well, he was training with a friend. He had a friend in Tucson, Arizona named Richard Martin. Richard Martin was probably one of the coolest dudes I've ever met. Reminded me of Robert Plant, kind of looked like Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. Of course, you got to understand it's the 70s, right?
Nice,
And
nice.
so they worked out a little bit, and that's how I was introduced to the world of Kempo and martial arts. And I was a drummer at the time. I stayed a drummer for many years. So I always was drawn to Kempo because of the rhythm and the timing of it. And later on, just the pure power that you get from it. But that's what drew me to it. And so my brother, Richard Martin, trained with a guy in Arizona named Gilbert Velez, another great Kempoist. And so my brother Greg started working out down there at his studio. Of course, I was 12. I just did whatever my brother showed me. And got to see Mr. Parker this was probably 1975 ish, I'm guessing. I saw Mr. Parker at a tournament. He was doing a demo, an exhibition. And it was at a gymnasium somewhere. I apologize, can't remember where it was, but this was in Tucson, Arizona. I remember sitting there watching him move and thinking, oh my God, this guy's amazing. And he was in the center, I'll never forget this. He was in the center of the auditorium and he was doing this sort of a mass attack thing. I want to say the guy's name was Howard Silva, but I could be very wrong on that. Uh, but he did this thing, and it just the energy and the the power that he was generating with such control just blew my mind. And I could just feel it radiating across the floor to I was sitting in the front of the bleachers there, and I just feel it coming across the floor. And I can remember thinking, man, and I said out loud, I go, man, I want to train with that guy. And I remember one of the guys, of course, I'm at this time, I think I was 13, 14. I remember the guy next to me going, you'll never train with that guy. That's Ed Parker. Well, flash forward many years, and my brother and I finally started training with Mr. Parker. And I'd say that was probably 1980-ish is when that happened. Um, but I bounced around from different systems, different Kempo systems in the area, different karate guys doing different things. Studied some Hung Gar, some Kung Fu, just whatever was available at the time. And of course, with my brother. And then we had the opportunity to train in Kempo more regularly, and I did. And then in 1980, 80-ish, we wanted to open a studio. And we were green belts at the time. And we had to have Mr. Parker approve us to do that. And so he came down and ran us through just a grueling thing. Thank you, honey. and approved us to open a studio at Greenbelt. And so this was in Las Vegas. We opened a studio. It was called AA Action Kempo Karate. And we had that studio for many years. And so we got to open our studio at Greenbelt and talk about a interesting challenge to try to teach when people have a mindset of, oh, you should be a black belt or you should be this or that. And so it gave us a great perspective on how to share the art and and have people interested in what the art was doing, not necessarily what was around your waist. And so that was a unique experience. We did that for many years, and we trained with Mr. Parker up until his passing. I had met Mr. Mills, Mr. Paul Mills. I met him probably, say I would say it was 88, something like that. I met Mr. Mills, um, 88, 89, and thought he was amazing. Didn't really get a chance to train with him. My brother did for a minute, and so once Mr. Parker passed away, we immediately started working out with Mr. Mills, and there was a period of time where we worked out a little bit with Dennis Knatzer. That was there's a whole story about that. Mr. Parker um, was getting ready to promote us to our black belts and had an idea of doing a tournament in Vegas, but his he had everything ready to go, certificates, everything was ready to go. And then he passed away. Got a call from Mr. Knatzer saying, hey, the old man died. Everyone used to call him the old man at that. I didn't, but of course, a lot of his students did. And, um, and so that was just, it was heartbreaking. And so it took a little while for that to come back around, but we finally did get the promotion to black belt. And so I'll always be thankful to Mr. Knatzer for allowing that to happen, getting us through that part of it, because that was a bad time. And, but we started training with Mr. Mills, same period of time, and became his official student and trained with him all the way till he passed away in 24. Oh my God, it's been a while now. And so was with Mr. Mills for about 35 years or so. And so I was very, very blessed to have that as my journey, to be able to train with two great Kempoists. And so now my mission is just to teach what I've been taught. My mission is to basically prove Mr. Parker was a genius, which he was. The guy was amazing. And that Mr. Mills was one of his top proteges and helped evolve the art to a different way of teaching. There's some great Kempoists out there. Don't get me wrong. There's some great Kempoists out there. And it just, everyone has their own little way of doing things. And when it comes to what Mr. Mills is doing, a lot of that had to do with what Mr. Parker showed him towards the end. And Mr. Parker would spend a lot of time up there at Mr. Mills's place. I don't know if you know too much about Paul Mills, but he had a hotel up in Evanston, Wyoming. And every now and then, Mr. Parker goes see his sister who lived up in Utah at the time. And then Mr. Mills would pick him up at the airport, drop him off, and then pick him up at his sister's house. And then Mr. Parker goes stay a couple of weeks out at the hotel in Evanston. And he'd tell Mr. Mills, hey, look, if it's not my wife calling, I'm not here. And so he would spend quite a lot of time up there training with Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker would just organize his thoughts and just train, just get away from the rat race, which can be pretty daunting. And a lot of that stuff was shared. And I can remember many stories of seeing videos of Mr. Parker, Mr. Mills working out there, and just, it blew my mind because Mr. Parker would always talk about Mr. Mills as this kid in Wyoming that he knew. And it always makes me laugh because Mills is never a kid to me, he was always my instructor, my teacher. And so to hear Mr. Parker talk about Mr. Mills as the kid in Wyoming, it just used to crack me up. And then I'd watch the videos of Mr. Parker just throttling the shit out of Mr. Mills, just throttling him. And it's just, wow, that was some, I got to see things that Mr. Parker would do that a lot of people just never see it because it's not out in video very often. But the guy was amazing. And in his own right, Mr. Mills is just as amazing. And so my mission now is to just share what I've been taught, and to anyone who will listen, really. And because I think, like with kids, when you're raising kids, you can't have too many responsible adults to be part of their life. And I look at the same thing in Kempo. You can't have too many responsible Kempoists sharing the art. So I think that's what our job is, just share the art and share the perspectives we were taught. One of the things that I find that Mills did the most for me was to shift my thinking from technique focused to principle focused, which is a huge thing. To get out of the mindset of being a sequence junkie or a technique addict and just understand the motion that you're learning and realize where the principles layer on top of it, and how your structure is governed by your functions governed by structure. And so that whole saying of structure governs function is so true when it comes to Kempo. And when you watch someone doing Kempo that's truly following that structure, it's a beautiful thing. It really is. And I mean, training in Kempo, you could see it. And so that's what I do now is I just teach and I share what I've been taught and um, keep learning myself. Every day I'm learning something. And so after 50 years of training, I'm still learning. So that's the beautiful thing. We always want to be a student.
Oh yes, no, I totally agree. That's there's never an end. There's always so much to learn, so much to uh, experience that it never stops. And if
Right.
at any point you think that you've reached the end, then you're definitely on the wrong path, because take a million plus uh, lifetimes to be able to get all of everything, and still that wouldn't be enough time to get everything. So
Well, yeah,
yeah.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There's so much information out there. And for me, what I found over the years, and you make a great point, um, I used to try to study everything I could. Um, that whole uh, exploring so many different things because I thought, well, man, I got to really get a well-rounded idea. Um, and now I look at it like, well, I'm a Kempoist. That's what I do. And I love studying different things. I've got great friends that are awesome jujitsu guys and ground fighters, and they twist me up in my uniform all the time. I think that's one of the funniest things. My son does that now. He's been doing jujitsu for about 7 8 years, and he'll fold me up in my uniform all the time. And so it's good to know those things, but I just focus on the Kempo more than anything else these days, and find those other arts inside of it, like we were talking earlier. Um, I just find the art of Kempo is so encompassing over in the mindset of principles. It encompasses so much motion that when you start really getting in these principles, these topics, these things like everyone's heard of principles. The gravitation merge, the elongated circles, whatever you say, stabilizing your base, time on target, anchoring the elbow, whatever you're doing, those principles have multiple levels to them. And so when I look at other arts, I go, "Oh, there's the principle," or I look at that, and I go, "Oh, there's that principle." And so now I'm just looking for principles. And so that's how I train now is to find those sequences of motion that are teaching me the principles, and then I stay in that structure, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. So wanted to run it back to when you opened the school. Uh,
Mhm.
so was teaching something that you always wanted to get into, or was it kind of thrust upon you a little bit, or?
Well, no, I always wanted to teach. Teaching is no matter what I do in my life, I'm always teaching. I got into law enforcement many years ago, and I was teaching then. Then I got into the psych field and was teaching then. Everything I've done has been teaching in some way or not, and so some way or the other. And so teaching back then, when we opened that studio, I just thought it was awesome just to work out and have Mr. Parker's mind to ask questions to. And for me, I was just like a sponge. I wanted to learn as much as I could. And then I remember the time when Mr. Parker said, "Hey, the best way to learn is you got to teach it." And so that became my next mission was how do I teach? And I was still confused at the time, or not confused, but kind of backing up a little bit. In my perspective these days, you have an instructor and then you have a teacher. Now, if you look in the dictionary, they're swapped in the definition, but in the martial arts, teacher has a connotation to it. Oh, you embarrassed my teacher, you insulted my teacher. There's always the teacher, right? And so um, my goal was to not just be an instructor, but to be a teacher. And the way it was explained to me is that an instructor will show you what they know because they're still at that phase of being excited about what they're learning. They want to show you everything they've got. But a teacher will show you what you need. And there's a difference. And so my goal was to become a teacher. Not, and I can remember a lesson one time, kind of backing up. Um, I tend to ramble too, Reggie. So if you get to that
That
point, you can
that
just say, "Hey,
is
just interject."
that is perfectly fine. We have plenty of tape, so
Good, good. And so I was talking to Mr. Mills one time, and he'd always shoot me these questions, right? He'd shoot me a video and he'd say, "What am I doing here?" Or he'd say, "Hey, I want you to pull the video off the internet and critique it for me. Tell me what you think." And so I remember this one time I pulled a video off the internet. I can't remember who it was, what they were doing, some Kimple guy doing something. And so I wrote what I thought was an excellent diatribe, an excellent 3-page thesis on what I thought was wrong with what this guy was doing. I thought it was a brilliantly written piece, right? And so Mr. Mills, typical fashion, says, "Great, Scott. So how would you fix it?" And I wasn't ready for that question. I was ready for him to go, "Hey, great observations." Nope. He said, "Hey, how would you fix it?" And so I, I hem and hawed a little bit back and forth with some answers. And finally he calls me and said, "Scott, you're saying a lot of stuff, but how would you fix it?" I go, "Well, to be honest with you, I don't really know exactly where to start on that one. I know how to teach it, but I'm not really sure what you're asking me." And he said, "Well, Scott, if you can't have a way of fixing something or teaching someone how to do something, then you're just a critic. You're just a critic. And so you're better off not saying a word." And boy, I'll tell you, that just stabbed me in the chest, you know? In typical Mills fashion, he'd let you sit in that kind of crap for a little bit. And so then he came back and said, "Scott, you have to be a teacher. If you can't teach, then all you're doing is criticizing. And at that moment, you've lost the ability to teach anybody anything." And so that stuck with me. And so a long, long time it took me to kind of figure out what is the difference between instructor and teacher and what is my goal. And so now when people ask me questions, especially after Mr. Hills passed away, I got a lot of phone calls from different people. And they'd always ask, some of them were some of the higher ranking guys that trained with Mr. Mills. They're like, "What do we do next?" I go, "Just teach. Just teach. And don't worry about anything else. Just teach. Um, it'll all work itself out if you look at it through the eyes of a teacher." And they'd say, "Well, what about this particular guy? I don't know what his mindset's. I don't know if he's trying to do it for the right reasons. I don't know." I go, "It doesn't really matter. Because and this is what I'll say to you too, if you're looking through the eyes of a teacher, you will always have the right answer. If I have somebody who's maybe a little obnoxious, maybe they're not ready to learn, well, maybe life needs to be their teacher for a while. And maybe you need to say, 'Hey, bless your heart. Good luck to you. Let life be their teacher for a while.' But even in that circumstance, if I end that conversation in a way that makes them think I'm an asshole, then I'll never have another opportunity to teach them again. But if I end that conversation with a way that says, 'Hey, you're on your path. I honor that path. If you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to call me.' Well, now I've left that conversation as a teacher. That person now won't, so they might say, 'Well, yeah, I really didn't agree with a lot of what he said, but hey, he's a nice guy.' I would rather have that than to have them go, 'Oh, that Scott Hilderbrand, what an ass,' and just, I don't want that. Now, is there that out there? Sure. You're in this long enough, you're going to have people that don't like you. But the bottom line is, I don't want it to be because of something I did to them or said to them. And so I always want to look at it through the eyes of a teacher. If you meet them where they're at, you'll never go wrong. And so that's what I try to tell people nowadays is just share what you got. Look at them as a student to say, like, where's this guy at? Even people that want to train a little bit, they'll say, "Hey, I want to work out with you." Okay, great. They'll ask, "Hey, how do I learn in a distance? Like, how do I do distance training with you? How do we do that?" And a lot of it has to do with videotapes or filming you're on your phone. And I'll always ask them, "Do you film yourself?" And a lot of times they don't. And so that's the one thing I'll tell you. Mills had such great ways of teaching, but one time he goes, "Scott, I can't teach you another thing until you start seeing the way I see it." And so he goes, "You gotta film yourself." I'm like, "I don't understand, Mr. Mills. What do you mean?" And I pushed him on it. And so finally he says, "Well, Scott, bless your heart, you look like a Tyrannosaurus Rex chasing dinner." And so what he was meaning is my arms I was so tight in my motion. In my mind, it was beautiful, perfect. And he goes, "You gotta film yourself." And so I did. I'm like, "Holy crap, I look like a Tyrannosaurus Rex chasing dinner." And so it wasn't until I saw myself moving that I could see the problem he was trying to tell me about. And so when I look at it that way, he goes, "Scott, you've been doing this for a long time. You have students." "Yes, I do." He goes, "How would you teach a student? You'd teach yourself the same way." Most of us, at some level of our training, have some understanding of motion. And so if you film yourself, you should be able to correct yourself in a way that you would any other student. And so that's why I always tell people, film yourself. If you can, put up a camera at 2 or 3 different angles, because it's always those angles you don't see where your mistakes happen. And so that's how I do it these days is I'll film myself, I'll tell people, film yourself, and then let's go from there. A lot of people want to know, well, how do you do that motion, or how do you do that technique, or how do you do that form? And I don't really worry about that too much anymore. What I look at is, I remember a while back, Mr. Parker and even Mr. Mills would say, flow first, power later. And that's probably, so I don't think it's unique to Kempo, but I think it's just a saying that's come along through any type of physical art or any type of thing you're doing. You want to flow first and then power it up later. Because if you're so stiff worrying about power, you're going to lose a lot of those synergistic movements that happen internally. And so when I look at teaching, it's the same way. I don't care what you're doing. Just put yourself on video, pick up a stick, do something with a stick, or just do anything. And then let me see how you're moving. And that'll tell you everything you need to know about where the next lesson should be. It has nothing to do with, can I do this form or can I do that technique? It has everything to do with, can I do this motion? Is my structure correct? What's my timing look like? Where am I getting power from? Can I internalize these things? Where's my orbital facilitation? Where's all the principles involved? And then at that point, man, you're off and running. And it doesn't matter what technique you're doing as long as your structure and your principles are layered properly, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I really like that, and I think that is a under promoted, not talked about enough. A great training tool, training tip is videoing yourself, and so that you can get that feedback. Because I mean, I'll definitely speak for myself. I do think, I'm not the master martial artist. Have the best technique, and I definitely have my weak points. But when I do things, I kind of in the similar boat and thinking, oh yeah, like this looks great, and then
Yeah,
if I
I'm
happen to
perfect. If
catch
anyone could
myself in
see
the
me, they just
mirror
be
or video or
right.
something like that, I'm like, oh my God, is that
Oh,
what
yeah.
I do? And I'm very, 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 very against seeing myself, which is kind of funny, as at least for this, how this show is going. I'm dipping my toes into doing video episodes, and those
Good,
will
good, good.
be coming in the future. But yeah, there's been a number of times where I've been like, oh well, I should video myself doing this or that, and then I think about, oh well, then I've got to watch it, and that's really
Yeah,
gets the sweat going, and
sure.
which I haven't seen it. I haven't done it too much on the Kempo side, but in the Capoeira world, I think that's where I've really got my distaste for seeing myself, because
Sure.
I mean, I'm a big jolly guy, and when
Yeah,
I'm throwing
capoeira is a
kicks and
lot of
moving
movement.
around, yeah, I
That's
think
right.
that I think I look a lot cooler than I do, and then I watch the video
Yeah.
back.
You're like, "I think
Think
that backflip
otherwise.
was great," and then it's like, "Wait a minute, that looks like my 5-year-old grandkid doing a cartwheel in the front lawn. What the hell?" You know?
Yeah, I get a lot of that,
That's
but yeah, the it is a really underutilized training tool, is getting that visual feedback of what you're doing, and there's a lot of things that you can't see unless you look at it through another set of eyes, so to speak. So
Well, if you think about it, you're absolutely correct. And when we look at the writings, like Mr. Parker wrote all the time about it. He talked about the third point of view and looking at, you're looking at it from three perspectives. Well, the perspective we never see it from is that third party perspective. And now we have the ability to film ourselves anytime we want. And that right there is going to really open up the training aspect. Um, the key, though, Reggie, is to make sure you're looking at it through the eyes of a teacher. Don't judge yourself. You're not there to judge yourself. You're there to see where you can see improvement potential. Because when you start judging yourself, man, now you're in the same. Now you're back at 5 years old when you were grounded for something. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
got to your brain will. Man, our brains are not our best friends all the time, and so that's good. It's good to do, but always do it through the eyes of a teacher, even your own life, right? Everything we learn in Kempo, all the universal principles that we learn in Kempo, the thing that's unique about a universal principle is that what makes it universal is that it applies universally, which means it should apply to everything in your life. It doesn't mean it just applies to the motion that you're doing, right? Contouring, um, elongated circles, any of those things can apply to everything you do. Um, if you take it from a perspective of not just physical, but even into a physiological or even a psychological aspect. Um, whatever whatever we look at as far as sayings that Mr. Parker had, or even Mr. Mills, he had plenty of sayings too. You want to look at it through all those dimensions of your mind, your body, and your spirit. And so, um, just because my body tells me, okay, I can settle my body weight here. I can ground myself with my strikes. All right, well, that's a physical application. But am I grounding myself emotionally? Am I grounding myself spiritually? Am I grounding myself um, in my reactions to things? Am I letting rage rule my passions? And so everything we learn, if it's a universal principle, it should apply universally across the board. Um, I know when I used to have a stick, I used to drive a stick, instead of a automatic, and I used to think, "Okay, how can I shift gears faster if I'm racing this thing?" Well, I gotta contour my movement. I gotta have elongated circles. The way you move inside that car is gonna be a Kempo principle. The way I talk to my family is gonna use a Kempo principle. The way I ap the way I apply myself to life, period, is all Kempo. And that's why I say I'm a Kempo guy. I apply it in everything I do. And so if you're thinking in that way, how does this principle apply to my life? So the third party perspective, that's a principle that you can use for your own training. But it's also a principle to say, hey, how's this person seeing me? I'm over here doing this. Well, what about the 4 or 5 people standing off to the side? What impression am I giving them? Are they taking this as the same lesson I'm giving this person, or are they looking at it, "Oh, that guy's arrogant," or, "Oh, that guy thinks he's so good," or, "That guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about," or whatever it is, that third party perspective means a lot. Even if even when I worked law enforcement, just standing there, how you stand is a statement in and of itself. And so if I'm standing there, how's that impression? And now what we see all over the streets nowadays, it's all perspective. A 30-second little clip and then a 4-hour narrative, right? We don't know if that's really what happened. We just know that's what that little video showed, and then it's the perspective that was laid on top of it. We can look at it the same way with our Kempo, with our training in the martial arts. This one little move has all this perspective layered on top of it, and then how do I sort through that minutia to really get to the lesson? And so I think that's sort of how I apply it to life, if that makes sense.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, no, I like that. There's definitely it's lots of different perspectives, and it's this way in all martial arts. But Kempo definitely gets run through the ringer on perspectives and opinions and ideas of how things should be, how things are. Just something that's coming to mind. There's of course, little clips and things that show up on social media, and people see it and they're, oh well, that technique wouldn't work, or why are they teaching it
Sure.
that way, or what are they doing, or they're slapping themselves, and all those all those different things that are said about Kempo people. But once again, it's just, oh, you're seeing that little piece, and it may be out of context, or you don't have the full picture, so
Yep.
it makes it difficult to talk in a educated way about
Hmm.
whatever, little 30-second clip. So
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's very easy to be a critic, right? Back to what I was saying, the lesson I got from Mills. Great, that's great. You have a perspective on it. How would you fix it? What is your inclination on correcting what you see as a problem? Matter of fact, throw a video up, show me what you would do to fix that problem. And instead, it becomes this, especially with social media, it's a very safe place to just throw out opinions that you don't have to back up. And I used to get upset with that stuff, but now, like I said before, when I look at it through the eyes of a teacher, if I'm going to respond online to anything, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Most of the times I don't, but every now and then I'll respond to something, and I think, in this response, am I being a teacher, or am I just being somebody who has to show you what I know? Am I just trying to throw in there, oh yeah, but what about me, and what about this, and what about that? Because I'll tell you, there was a time in my life. I'm 63 now, but there was a time in my life where, uh, I would die on whatever hill I was believing in, right? Until I realized that that hill that I'm dying on, the very next day, I might learn something that changed everything. And so I realized that, okay, there are some truths that are self-evident, but some truths are, um, not self-evident based on my own opinion and perception. I might have my own mental blocking. There's a great book out there written by a guy named Don Miguel Ruiz called The Four Agreements. I don't know if you heard of that one,
oh
but
yes.
it's a great book, and we used to use it for a while there. I ran book now called treatment centers, and helped run those with some friends, and we used to use that book as part of the core curriculum. And it's a great book, but what it talks about is basically that your own personal perceptions of how you see yourself and others, and really understanding that my perception may be flawed based on my personal understanding of myself. And so, until I got to a point, and I still work on it, we all do, to where I can say, all right, my perception is my perception. What's that person's perception? And how do I get them to see it the way I'm looking at it without alienating those folks? I remember one time we were in a discussion with Mr. Barker, and in a similar conversation, someone was having a problem teaching a person. They were going to do a seminar, and it was a seminar that was very, very. Uh, oh, hold on, just one second.
No problem.
My phone was ringing there. It was a perception that was very much uh, rooted in this belief system of what they know and what they were thinking. And so he said, "Look, um, shoot, I just lost track of what I was saying. What was I saying there? Sorry, my phone just distracted me.
Oh, no
Shoot,
problem.
we'll get back to it." Oh,
Yeah, just getting into the perception of the
yeah, it was a story Mr. Parker told me. Doggone, I just lost it. We'll remember. But that was what he would always tell me. Yeah, if you got someone who's got this mindset, then oh, this is what it was. There was a guy who was getting ready to teach a seminar at a hardstyle clinic. It was like a Shotokan or a Shorinji or so. It was a very hardstyle based system, and he was nervous about how he could get them to do stuff. And so Mr. Parker's like, well, what was your experience last time? He goes, man, I couldn't get them past this linear line. And he's told a story of, well, sometimes if somebody doesn't see it my way, I'll walk with them for a while. I'll walk the path with them for a while. And as I'm walking down their path, I'll just start nudging myself to the left or to the right, whichever. Just start going one, and just small little nudges. He says, before you know it, they're walking in the direction you want to go. but they never saw you turn the corner. And so the idea is trying to find, so the key to that is to be able to see how the Kempo motion overlaps everyone else's motion too. Kempo is just circular linear movement. And when I look at somebody doing, say, a hard style, and someone goes, they're just too rigid. I don't look at it that way anymore. I go, no, they've mastered that part of their motion. They've completely mastered their linear movement. All we have to do now is teach them how to round off a corner, and they'll be good to go. And then as soon as you teach them how to round off a corner, they go on their own direction with it. And so that's why I say Kempo is everything. Everything is involved in Kempo, but not everyone enjoys that. And so maybe they enjoy a hard style. They just want to round a corner a little bit and see a little bit of that movement. And so you just teach them how to round a corner. And when you look at some of the original techniques that Mr. Parker had out there and you put them in the perspective of when they were created and why they were created, you start realizing that those are just methods in which he can cross over to a linear system and teach them Kempo. If you think about it, like you do Kempo, so one of the first techniques you learn yellow belt, attacking mace. Perfect example. Step back, and we're blocked, straight punch, right? Really, what is that? If you think about it, what technique is that built around? It's built around a hard styles, one-step sparring technique, right? Basically, step in, punch. So you're learning how to block, punch, check. You're learning how to round corners off and go from a linear punch into an elbow, which is just rounding off a corner, which is just a very basic way of using your orbital facilitation, but it's still a principle. And so you look at all the techniques Mr. Parker developed and the time he developed them, you have to understand the audience he was talking to at the time. Mostly hard stylists, mostly linear, mostly very traditional martial artists. And for him to have to introduce his vision of what martial arts was, you have to have somewhere to start. And that's where that, in my opinion, that's where that comes across. I remember him talking about that technique many times and as an example of how he can take a hard style guy and get him rounding corners off pretty quickly. Um, but anyway, that's just an example of that.
Yeah,
But
no, I really like that. One of my previous guests had said something like that. They had a student that um, was a Hapkido practitioner, and but they got the okay from their teacher to come and learn a little bit of Kempo to kind of help with their self defense techniques and just like you mentioned, rounding off some of those corners, and they trained for a while. I guess they would have got somewhere kind of equivalent to around a blue belt or a green belt or something like that, and once they kind of got the kind of meat of what they were looking for in, as far as improving their skill set, and they said, okay, well, thank you for the training. This is what I needed. I needed to get that little piece filled in, that little empty space filled in, and they went on to continue their Hapkido journey. But there
good.
was those little bits and pieces, the principles and concepts and things that they needed to help fill out their experience in their training and
Gotcha.
the kind of things that they were looking for. So
Well, see,
yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up. That's another reason why I started doing what I do. I started a thing called the Kempo Mill, and some of the videos I've put out are based on the Kempo Mill as a structure, and then there'll be more coming out. But the idea is I wanted to be able to teach what I've been taught, um, but I didn't want to be isolated in just one group or one body of people. Even though the AKKI that Mr. Mills created has been retired, well, so like I was saying, the association, the AKKI was retired, the family retired it, and they put out a message, the whole thing. And so the AKKI as an association is no longer, but that board of directors, which I'm part of, um, that was the AKKI board, we're going to keep moving forward in that, whatever that is, with that group. But that has nothing to do with the Kempo Mill. The Kempo Mill is a way for me to teach everybody that is interested in Kempo. And so the idea is that by being principle focused, not necessarily technique focused, there's a set of curriculum, a set of curricula that works itself very well around those principles. There's certain motions, certain things within the Kempo system that are universal that you build on top of. And that's what I do when I teach the Kempo Mill stuff. I just go, whoever's wanting to learn, hey, what are you doing? And then they go, well, we're doing this. I'm like, perfect. Then you just layer a principle on top of that. And and that's how you teach. That's how you can teach anybody. And so that was my goal there. And when you're talking about, everyone's got their way of looking at it, or everyone's got their perspective, that that lends itself a lot to the technique aspect or the forms or whatever. But that's not necessarily Kempo per se. It's the vehicle to get you there. And so, I might use a Subaru or I might use a Ferrari to get me from A to B. But when I'm getting there, what's going to be the best effective way to do that? And what's going to be the best way to teach that to somebody? Somebody might be in a frame of mind where that Subaru is the most comfortable thing they're in at that point. That's their comfort zone. They might not be able to get into a Ferrari and hit, 100 miles an hour right away because they haven't gone 100 miles an hour. And so they need to take whatever vehicle it's going to get them there. But on the path to getting there, are they learning proper principle? Because it doesn't matter what vehicle you're using, if you put gas to a gas pedal or acceleration to the engine, you're going to move faster. So what's the best way to do that? What's the best way to decelerate? If I'm going to take a corner in a vehicle, do I slow down before the corner, speed up through the corner? There's principles involved with driving. And it doesn't matter what vehicle you're using to get there, as long as your principles are solid, you're going to get there. It's the time that it takes somebody to see the connection that's the goal. And so that's why when I'm looking at teaching, I just want to focus on principle. I don't care what you're doing because it doesn't matter what you're doing. It matters how you apply your principles. And there's certain things that work to that end that will favor your training and some that will go against it. Like Mr. Parker used to say, there is no real wrong motion. There's effective, ineffective, less effective, more effective. That's it. I'm paraphrasing. But the idea is that there's never a wrong way. There's just a very less effective way. And so I don't look at it anymore as, oh, that's not right. Well, because that's not necessarily true. In some contexts, that might be perfect. So it's what principle are you working on at that moment? And then how do we make that principle work better for you? And then once you see that, how do we layer those principles on top of each other to make it more effective? Because our goal is to have maximum effect with minimum effort. That's kind of a terminology that's gone along with Kempo for many years, which is maximum effect, minimum effort. And that's almost a contradiction in a statement, because in the beginning, that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like, man, you're not doing much, but you're hitting so much harder. But the reality is you've just taken the principles and internalized them. And so now the effort is internal, not as much external. So when someone says minimum effort, that's not exactly true. It's visually less effort. It doesn't look like you're moving that much, but inside you're doing a whole bunch. And so you've internalized those principles to a point where it doesn't look like you're doing anything, but you're doing a lot. And so that's why that statement of, minimum effort, maximum effect is a great statement. But as you get training, you start learning that, man, I'm working harder now than I've ever worked. I can tell you there's times when I'm training, I'll do an hour seminar and I'm down for 3 days afterwards because it just wears you out. And there's so much violence happening inside your own body. It's a violent explosion that you're doing, and you're snapping, you're popping, you're torquing, you're doing a lot of motion. And so it's this violent explosion of energy that you're producing with your body that that you're going for. And that doesn't happen unless you're implying principle. It just doesn't happen. And so that's my goal, is to try to get people to really understand those principles. Not that they're not. I mean, there's lots of people out there doing it. But, I'm just saying for my teaching, that's how I do it. I just focus on principle, how to move, how to hit, how to layer those principles on top of each other so that those little things matter. Because it's the little things that make the difference. And and that's what a lot of people don't see because they're so focused on the big picture that they're not seeing the little connections. But once they do, it's like, "Oh, that's it. So that's what you're talking about," and it's off to the
Mhm.
races, you know? But that's sort of my
I
thinking
like
on
it.
that.
I like it. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, and uh, I really like that you're uh, more focused on the why and not just the how. In my training, I started at a school that was essentially that of the Tracy's curriculum, and we, not for good or bad or anything like that, but we were kind of more focused on the techniques. I had
Mhm.
40 techniques per belt when I started, and it was all techniques, and it wasn't until I started training with my teacher now that got into doing the principles and concepts and terminology and all those other little
Gotcha.
bits that I feel more knowledgeable now, having the why uh, versus just having the how to do this thing. So
Gotcha. Yep. Well, that's like Mr. Parker would say, if you're those that know how will always be students. Those that know why will be the teacher. And, side note,
uh,
who do you train with now in the Kempo
his
system?
name is Bill Piper, um, and
Okay.
he's we're still we're still working through getting. Unfortunately, he had to close his school back in December last year, but we've still been training in the garage, training in the park, and worked out a situation to where we're doing classes at my jiu-jitsu school. So that,
Well, some of the best classes are
oh
in
yeah,
in
for
garage
sure, for
studios,
sure.
right? So some of my best lessons were in the
Hmm.
living room, you know? So yeah. And I don't think I've heard that name before. You said his first name's what
William
now?
Piper, and
Why it sounds very familiar. Um,
yeah,
why does that
yeah,
sound familiar?
he's been
Who's his
around. Well, he got
instructor?
his third and fourth from Larry Tatum, um, and
There you go.
he's
Okay. That's
yeah,
probably why I
and
recognize the name.
I'm still not super clear on the previous instructors to that. I'm still working on getting him on the show, um, not for
Yeah.
lack of trying, for sure, but um, uh,
That's all right.
yeah, but
That's all
he's
right.
we're still uh, working it out, and getting those good lessons, and uh, yeah, he's big on the principles and the concepts, and that
Good, good,
why versus the how. So that's what.
good. Is there anything you've been working on lately that you're questioning? Like, is there any questions that have come up in your mind lately of your Kempo training that you're
No,
wondering about?
not so much. Really, I'm just trying to lock down all the material. I've been kind of so
Good.
I did another interview earlier today, and I mentioned that Greenbelt is kind of my kryptonite, in that I at my original school I got about halfway through my Greenbelt, and then I left for the Army, and had
Mhm.
aspirations of going back and, quote unquote, finishing my training, getting my black belt, and all that, but
Sure.
that didn't happen. Well, uh, at with Mr. Piper, I was getting ready to test for my advanced green, and that then the school could shut down. So we've been kind of in this holding pattern for getting me tested for my brown. It will happen. We're still figuring things
Sure.
out
Well,
and getting it locked down. But yeah, just I guess the kind of the one maybe hindrance to all the various training that I'm doing is that I can't really focus full on my Kempo, but I'm working on some time management, and we've continually been talking about getting a date set, and let's get this testing out of the way, and so I can move on. So, but yeah.
well, it'll happen. I guarantee in time. I mean, when I first started training, I never in my brain, I never even saw myself in the future that far. Like I didn't my goal was never to say I want to get to this level or I want to get to that rank or I want to it was never that. It was always I want to just understand what I'm doing. I want to get better at understanding the art. Uh, And I remember that was my goal always. And so whenever I would train with somebody, I think I would always, I train with this guy and get this rank. And then I go, well, I want to, my goal was to get closer to Mr. Parker as a source. And so I would find an opportunity to do that. And maybe this guy's like, well, I want you to wear this rank now. And so I got my green belt probably 3 times. I got my purple belt probably 3 or 4 times. I got my brown belt twice. The rank itself stopped being as important as the knowledge. And like Mr. Mills would say, if you have knowledge but you don't have an understanding on how to apply it, then it starts to have very little value. And he'd always say, "Hey, that's great." Like he'd ask me, we'd learn something, and I'd start to understand it. He'd go, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this particular thing?" And I go, "It's this." And he go, "That's right. Now you got to get under your hands and feet." That was what I always used to say. He used to always say that. Well, Scott, you got to get under your hands and feet. You got to get under your hands and feet. And that's the idea of how to apply these things. It's one thing to know it, and there's a lot of knowledgeable people out there. Believe me, lots of knowledgeable people out there. Walking, talking encyclopedias of Kempo. Really. I mean, just amazing stuff. But at a certain point, there can be a disconnect of all that knowledge and no physical application of it. Um, there'll be a limit to that understanding. And so you go, well, I want to see how you apply that particular principle in action. And through physical inabilities, through health, through injuries, through whatever it is, they're not able to do it. Doesn't mean they can't tell you how to do it. Just means they personally can't do it themselves. And so um, that would be the goal. For me, it was I don't want to just be able to regurgitate information. I want to be able to do it so that I could feel that. Like this is part of what we were saying before. Those sayings, right? To hear is to doubt, to see is to be deceived, but to feel is to know the truth or to believe, right? And
Oh, no
sorry,
problem.
my dogs are barking. But but the idea is even in that concept, Mr. Parker used to always say that but Mr. Parker had a saying: for every move, method, theory, principle, or definition, there's an opposite and reverse. I don't know if you ever heard that one, but that's true. And so when you look at every other saying, also layers on top of every other saying. They're just principles in a verbal context. And so when you look at to hear is to doubt, to feel to see is to be deceived, but to feel is to believe, you take that from an external into an internal. And so now, sure, I can hit somebody and they go, oh, I believe what you're saying now. Boy, that really did some number on me. I really felt that power. But what about internally for myself? What do I do in my own internal motion that allows me to do that? Because there's some things that you will never figure out until all those things work internally. That internal movement, that internal synergy. And so um, that's why I was saying a lot of these things, these principles overlap and they become more defined as you look at them through each other's lenses. And so, um, for instance, everyone probably you've heard of a kinetic chain. And so that's a principle of motion, kinetic chain. And if I'm teaching somebody okay, I'm in a right neutral or left neutral bow. I'm going to do a forward bow. I'm going to throw a punch. You're using a kinetic chain to go from the floor to the pane. How you're relaying that force. But that kinetic chain is just one level of that principle. And if I'm working in a sequence, and those muscles are firing, that kinetic chain is firing at a certain sequence, then that means that that's another principle that I'm using, which is sequential flow of action, sequential stages of action. We've heard of this too. And so if I have a sequential stage of action and I layer that on top of the idea of a kinetic chain, I remember one time I was asked, well, Scott, what's the difference between a kinetic chain and layering sequential flow of stages or sequential stages of action? When you do that, what changes? I didn't know, but it does. It does change. Now I understand what that means. We go from a kinetic chain to a kinetic coil. And a coil is a much different explosion of energy than a chain, if you think about it. And so the idea being if I have a spring and I compress that spring from each side and then I let it go, I have force because of the expanded spring, but it's a limited amount. There's no torque involved. But if I turn this spring like this when I compress it, do you follow what I mean? If I compress it and then I let it go, now I have a different type of energy released. So this would be a kinetic chain. This would be a kinetic coil. So what that tells me is there's an optimal way of using my sequential flow of action. One thing has to happen optimally first to make it work better, to have the maximum effect that I'm looking for. And so, but that's another way of looking at that principle of sequential stages of action on top of a kinetic chain, on top of a kinetic coil, on top of expansion, contraction.
Yes, sir.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Because we all hear this stuff, but how to apply it in a principle way, in a stacking way. I'm layering these principles. And so you go from one level of understanding to another level of understanding, not because I read it in a book, but because I applied it to my physical movement and I put the work in to put under my hands and feet, and now I can feel it. And now I can believe it. Now you can take that principle, that saying, to feel is to believe, and turn it internally and go, I am now teaching myself how to make this work because of how it feels internally. And so that's what I mean. Every one of these sayings applies in different manners on however you are going to use it at that moment. And so that was a big lesson for me. Um, if I mean, now you know what I mean
No,
when I say I ramble. I just
this
start
is gold.
talking.
This is one of the one of the reasons why I love talking to Kempo people because there's the dog. Wouldn't be an episode unless my dog didn't
That's
go
okay.
crazy. So, um,
Yeah.
and what I love about talking to Kempo people is that Kempo people love to talk, so it makes my job it makes my job easier. Um,
Well, it's academic, right? There's a lot of
So
academics
I
there.
like it. I like it. I like it. So as I say with all my guests, there's so many things that I want to get into, but we can't have a 12-hour show.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely have to have you back on for part 2 and 3 and 57 and to cover everything.
Sure.
But so what we are going to we're going to go ahead and move into what I call our lightning round here. So as we wrap up
Sure.
our time today, and then we'll definitely have to have you back on to cover some of the other items I wanted to get to. But we're going to go ahead and go into the lightning round
Sure.
here. So got a few little questions here for you. First one being, do you have a
Go
favorite
ahead.
technique? Yes, I realize the irony of asking that to Kempo people, but I still think it's fun to do, fun exercise to see what people say. So it's staying in.
Well, I'll tell you, there's over the years, there's probably an answer that I had for that. where I'd say, "Oh, I like this technique or that technique." But what at this stage in my life, in my training, the I know it's not a fast answer, but the answer is that many times Mr. Parker would say that there's really only one technique. There's really only one thing you're doing. Mr. Mills would say the same thing. There's really only one thing you're doing, which is another one of those convoluted statements. But if you were to ask me what I thought was the best technique or my favorite technique, I'm going to say, based on principles, it's going to be blocking set. Now, most people, not most, but a lot, will think blocking set's just kind of a junk set. But if you really understand it, it's a master key to everything else you're doing. Um, these master key movements, these master key techniques, they're all out there. But a lot of people say, "Oh, I like five swords. I like thundering hammers. I like this. I like that." Right? But none of those come from anything. You have to go back to the original to really figure out what the principles were you're teaching. I remember that one of the lessons I got from Mills was he's like, "Okay, we've all heard this. To teach principles, sometimes you have to violate principle." That's a pretty common Kempo statement. To teach principles, sometimes I have to violate principle, which is true because you have to start at one level to get them to another level. And so what Mills would tell me to do, he goes, "Okay, Scott, if that's true, I want you to go back and find out whatever principles were violated and fix them." And so now I had to go back. And this is why a lot of your advanced Kempoists, even though they've got high levels of ranking, when they go back into those beginning levels of the art, they move just like they did back then, only faster and quicker and harder. But the principles are still the same ones they're violating. And so you go back and you go, "All right, look, what did I violate? How do I fix it?" Because you can't violate more principle to fix a principle either. You have to fix it. And so when I did that, I realized that, well, if I went back to this technique, okay, five swords, great technique. Well, that wasn't an original technique in the beginning. I mean, Mr. Parker developed that technique. So where did it come from? So you go all the way back and you go, what did I start with? My first lesson with Mills was a 3-hour lesson on blocking set. 3 hours. And most people go, well, how do you come up with a 3-hour lesson on blocking set? Well, it's because it's principle focused. No longer are you focused on just the set. You're focused on the principles. And if I look at blocking set in the proper structure, all my principles should layer on top of it. Expansion, contraction, all that stuff should layer on top of it. And so when you say, what's my favorite technique? I would say it's not a technique. It's just the structure. And I would say if you want to really figure it out, go back to blocking set. And blocking set will teach you everything you want to know about motion. But you got to apply principles to it, not just technique,
I
if that
like
makes
it. I
sense.
like it. It's a great answer. Kind of leads into the next question, but I'll go ahead and ask it anyway. Do you have a
Sure, go ahead.
favorite form and or set?
These are great questions. These look like the questions that pop up on Facebook all the time. What is your? It's like, man, there's so many different interpretations. Um, so what I'll say is this: the there's there's a lot of forms and sets out there, and there's a lot of stuff that you're learning in each one. Each one has its theme. Each one has its characteristics that you're working on. Whether it's multiple attacks, mass attack, whatever it is you're working on, takedowns, sweeps. It doesn't really matter. For me, now I know this is not a great answer to what you're asking, but my answer to that is the form and the set that I like the most is whichever ones I'm connected to at the time. Whatever one I'm able to feel that motion at the time. It might be form. Mr. Mills he restructured some of the forms that were the original IKKA forms. Um, and so some of those I like doing a lot. I still like some of the older IKKA forms. Um, I like Form 4, 5, 6 are some of my favorites. I don't do them as much anymore because I do other stuff, but they're all good forms. But right now, when I'm training, I I do whatever I connect with the most at the time. And so I think that's the way it is for most people. When they go, "Hey, my favorite form is this." Well, I think that's because at that moment in time in their training, that's what's connected them the most. That's where they're feeling their synergy the most, how they feel the connections the most. Um, what Mr. Park would say a lot of times, and Mills, is when you have those moments where it all seems to click, where everything seems to go together, you should stop and take notes. They call those their moments of miracles because it's at that moment that things clicked. And you want to stop and write down why it felt different, why, what you got differently out of it, what felt different, what happened differently. Because now that you have, you can always practice it. Mr. Parker used to tell me all the time, Scott, if you want to master something, you got to give it a name. And you mentioned it earlier. What made Kempo so much different is that it's a structure, an analytical structure, and a catalog of motion. That's what Mr. Parker did more than anyone else. Is he categorized the motion. And so that's a long-winded answer around what you're saying, what you asked me. But my favorite form and set is the one I'm connecting with at the time, and it changes on whatever I'm working on. If I'm doing sticks this day, it might be a different set or a different form. So yeah, that would be my answer. Whatever, because everything we do is everything we do. That's one of the sayings I have. Everything we do is everything we do. And so if I'm working a technique or I'm working a form or I'm working a set, I should be able to connect those paths of action, those methods of execution, those timing patterns in whatever I'm doing. And so it stops being a matter of this set, this form, that technique, and it's this movement, that motion, this feeling. It
Yeah, I
that makes
like it.
sense.
I like it. Great answer. Great answer. Right. Next question. Do you have a favorite weapon?
I do. Um, I, when I was training earlier in my martial arts journey, I did all the traditional weapons. All of us do. You do all the traditional size and then chukkas and three sectional staff and all these things, right? The bow. Uh, but as time went on and I got more in a practical mindset, doing more law enforcement, more security work, I started getting into the weapons I would put my hands on most readily: gun, knives, sticks. That's about it. And so my favorite weapons are those that I train with now: knives, guns, and sticks. My latest kind of what I've been doing probably in the last year and a half, 2 years, a lot is sticks, because I think that in the Kempo world, sticks are um, they're out there, but there's a lot of our weapons system that's out in the Kempo world that uh, could be looked at. It could be analyzed further. And I think that that's probably where my focus is lately, is sticks and knives, basically. But yeah, that would be my favorite
Very
weapons.
nice. I like it. All right. Next question. If there is anyone that you could train with, living or dead, fictional or non fictional, besides Ed Parker, who would that be? It's a
Besides Ed
Kempo show,
Parker.
so I have to take him off the table.
Um, so you're saying a martial arts instructor or
Anybody. It
just a
doesn't even
teacher?
have to be a martial artist. Doesn't have to be a Kempo person. Anybody that's ever existed, uh, and even if they're not a real person. I mean, I've had some people mention Kung Fu Panda. I've had Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid. I've had
Gotcha.
oh
Gotcha.
gosh, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, all that stuff. So anybody ever that you would like to train with besides Ed Parker, then who would that be?
Well, I would say that my thought on that is going back to what I talked about earlier, is being a teacher. My goal is to be a teacher. I just want to teach and share what I've learned, um, and learn from others. But being a teacher is my goal, and being a better teacher is my goal. And if I was going to be able to train with any teacher I could ever imagine, it would be Christ. I would have to say Jesus is probably one of the best teachers ever, 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 ever. And regardless of your religious beliefs, it's pretty historic that Christ was an excellent teacher, and his wisdom was probably outstanding to the degree that people were asking questions at the time. And so, if I could sit and talk to anybody, it would be him, um, because that education would be it would cross over everything we do. Right, everything we do is mind, body, spirit. Um, And if anyone had the ability to teach in all three of those genres of those contexts, I think it'd be him. And so if I had anyone I could train with, it would be
Very
Christ.
nice. Great answer. I like it. All right. The final question is kind of a two-parter here. Uh, First part being, what is something that always motivates you to train? And the second part of that is, what is something that you would want to put out there to motivate others to train?
For me, what motivates me to train is age. To be honest with you, I have a lot of students that will ask me, "Hey, how do you do this? How do you do that?" Um, and it's training. As you train, as you keep training in life, one of my mentors told me one time that the body keeps score and it never forgets, and that is so true. And a lot of the things that, like friends of mine that they partied a lot when they were younger, they did this and that when they were younger, and now they're in their 40s, 50s, and their body's saying, "Hey, remember what you did then? Well, how about some of this?" And so then your body starts to fall apart. And especially in the world of Kempo and in martial arts, it's a very physical, um, aggressive thing on your body. And as I train more and study more and teach more, I realized that the things that Mr. Parker would tell me, the things that Mr. Mills would tell me, are vital. One of them was, you got to move in the groove, because if you're not moving in the groove, you're going to hurt yourself. Most Kempoists, when they really start moving, the injuries come from themselves, not from other people, because you've tweaked something out of place, you've moved your shoulder out of the groove, you've hit offline. Because remember, it's a violent engagement of your body on another person. And so as I train, the thing that motivates me the most is my age and pain, really. Because if I don't stay training, if I'm not working on my core, if I'm not doing the minimum, push-ups, pull-ups, basic stuff, walking, running, doing whatever, then my body will fail me. And so as I'm out teaching, I got all these younger guys out there, all these people. It's like, man, I've got to be able to keep up with those guys um, as best I can. And so, um, what I don't want to be is that guy that goes out on the floor to teach and just is the guy standing there letting everyone else do their stuff. I'm out on the mat, man. You want to hit me? Hit me. Right? You want to train? No, throw that punch. Let's train. Let's hit. Let's get some going, some banging going. And so, what motivates me the most now is age and pain. Really, just I want to be able to push through things, and so it doesn't get easier for those people listening that want to have a career in teaching. Just so you know, it doesn't get easier. It gets harder, and it gets more physical and more demanding and more painful. And that's kind of the blessing and the curse of it, is that you're gonna move, you're gonna hit hard, you're gonna be hit, but your body's going to keep score. And if you let yourself get out of the groove and you let yourself get out of shape, and I don't mean you have to be an athlete. I don't mean you have to be training for the Olympics. You don't have to be a, six pack ab guy, but you can stay in shape. You can keep your core tight. You can, uh, you can work your body in a way that stays healthy, limber. Uh, and that, if you want to continue your training, you've got to do that. And doesn't mean you're not going to be able to train in the martial arts. You can, but if you truly take it to that limit where you're pushing and hitting and banging on stuff, you're going to get hurt, and you're gonna have to work that out. So that would be my answer to that. Is the thing that motivates me the most is my age and pain, right? And then what I use to motivate others is exactly the same thing, like I just told you. Uh, you can do whatever you put your mind to. Your body will say, "Oh, is this what we're doing? Got it." And that's what your body will do. And as soon as you stop training, your body's going to say, "Oh, is that what we're doing? That's what we'll do." And so then things fall apart. And as you get older, they fall apart quicker. And so that would be the same answer for motivating others, is to stay healthy. Your basic three. It doesn't take a lot: diet, exercise, rest. That's the code's broken a long time ago.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so diet, exercise, rest, train, and focus on what you're doing. And so that would be my biggest motivation to others too. Because it doesn't matter what you're doing. whether it's martial arts, riding a bike, racing motocross, writing a book, doesn't matter. It all has the same principles of staying
I
healthy.
like it. I like it. It's once again another great answer. Yeah, I gotta keep going. Actually made me think of something else that came up in a conversation that I had with others related to jujitsu. But we'll I think I will bring that up and talk about that maybe in another episode. It's kind of giving me an idea for another lightning round question. But we'll get into that at another
Sure.
time. But so we're going to move to our final piece of business today, and that is the shameless self-promotion. So
Sure.
you can plug anything that you want, or if there's anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to make sure that we got out today, you now have the floor, and then we will wrap from there.
Well, thanks, Ray. Basically for me, I guess the shameless promotion would be just, the Kempo Mill and teaching and, just wanting to share whatever I have to give to others. If it's of interest to anybody, that's great. Um, I had the blessing of training with some very awesome people. I had the blessing, my brother and I, of training with Mr. Parker for many years, and then the blessing of training with Mr. Mills for many years. And what I realized out there was that there's a lot of people that never met either one of them. They trained in the arts that they taught, but they never really met them. And a lot of the stories and a lot of the training that came along with just being in that environment, um, people deserve to hear those things, and they deserve to get an opportunity to do that. And there's a lot of the people out there that just they're starving for it. They're hungry for it, not because it's done incorrectly or it just it's starting to fade away. A lot of those people that train with Mr. Parker and a lot of those people that train under the greats like that, um, they're passing and they're leaving us. And so a lot of those lessons um, fall to that generation of people that come up after us. And so that would be my shameless self promotion is if anyone wants to train, I'll train them. If anyone wants to learn, I'll work with them. I believe that everyone's got something to share. And so, like I said, I started the Kempo Mill to do that. And the organization that was the AKKI will continue further, and I'll be part of that as well. And that'll keep moving forward. Um, but the goal is to just share, just teach, and I think that's our responsibility at a certain point. Um, there's a duty, an obligation to share what we've been taught. Not that it's perfect, not that it's the best, not that it's what anyone else hasn't done, but your perspective is going to be different, and your lessons are going to be different, as well as mine and anyone else's. And so our goal is to get together and share those experiences, share that knowledge. Um, that's the goal, right? Martial arts is supposed to be a very non-ego driven, selfless thing. But I'll tell you, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, anyone that's been involved in the martial arts for any length of time can tell you there's so much ego. There's so much ego involved with it. There's so much mine's better than yours, or you didn't get it from the master this way. And it's like, really? I don't give a shit. What matters is what did you learn? Show me what you learned. I'll show you what I learned. Let's see if we can get some kind of a shared understanding and move forward with it. Because my belief is that the goal of our training in martial arts is nothing more than to become better human beings. That's it. It just martial arts is the vehicle that we've chosen to do that. You could be a writer, a painter, a scholar, a politician, a doctor, it doesn't matter. Whatever vehicle you chose to become a better human, that's the goal is to be a better human being. And so if I'm so stuck in my ego that I'm like, well, I'm going to save this to my chest here. I'm not going to ever share it. Well, now it's dead. Like Mr. Parker said, knowledge that's shared lives forever. Knowledge that's restricted dies. And so if we don't share and we don't open up that environment to everybody, then we're really not becoming better humans. And so that's my goal is to be a better human through teaching and sharing with others. So I appreciate you bringing me on the program. I love to come back and work on this with you some more. If you ever have any questions, you're free to call me and ask me. Um, and it's just an honor to be
No,
part of it.
I thank you so much for being on and sharing your story. And of course, you have a open invitation to be on anytime. And of course, I will certainly be hitting you up for some more stuff, because definitely want to get some more stories about working with Mr. Parker and Mr. Mills. And just all the different things that you have going on. So yeah, we'll we'll definitely be back at this before too long. But yeah, I just can't thank you enough
Perfect.
for being on and sharing your story. And I think the listeners are gonna enjoy hearing this, and I can't wait to get it out. So thank you. Thank you for listening to My Empty Hands. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. If you didn't enjoy it, please share it with an enemy. If you'd like to be a guest, or if you would like to recommend a guest for the show, please email me at podcast@talkingkempo.com. Thank you.